A story that has been decades in the making has indeed been a much anticipated film. A Wrinkle in Time is one of the classical and iconic literary sci-fi stories, so when it was announced that there would be a remake, people were stoked. This film is beautiful visually and has a wonderful message about self-empowerment, but today we have compiled a list of some stuff that you may have missed. But before we dive in, if you are new to Screen Rant, be sure to hit that red subscribe button to stay up to date with all of our latest videos.
You're kidding.
Do I look like I'm kidding? A little. I'm not. I'm not.
Symbolic sets. A Wrinkle in Time is one of the most breathtaking films we've seen in 2018. Wouldn't you agree? The scenes in the worlds they visit are surreal and look like wonderful paintings, and the costumes for Mrs. Which, Mrs. Whatsit, and Mrs. Who are extraordinary. But one of the most elaborate and beautifully designed parts of the movie were the sets. Remember the Happy Medium's place? It was all crystals and balance. It was all symbolic for what Meg needed to accomplish. She needed clarity and to balance herself, and that's the beauty of filmmaking, creating visual symbolism for the themes of the story. Just like the amazing prison that Meg's father is trapped in. The prison is a beautifully designed space. It's very geometric, and according to Chris Pine, who plays Meg's dad, it's also like a contemporary art installation piece, yet it's almost hauntingly perfect. Their tech advisor is a theoretical physicist who has a book, The Jazz of Physics, in which he discusses the intersection between math, music, physics, and space. How cool is that? We definitely see art and science come together in this beautiful film.
91 billion light years traveled like that.
Stellar scriptwriter. A lot of filmmaking is in the story. Sure, movies are very visual, but it's all about the story, which begins on paper. For those who don't know, DuVernay's film A Wrinkle in Time is adapted from Madeleine L'Engle's novel of the same title. So when it came to adapting this beloved book, it only made sense to go with a writer who has a stellar track record. So Disney looked no further than one of their most successful recent films, Frozen. Writer-director Jennifer Lee wrote the screenplay and co-directed Frozen. She was brought on board to write the script for A Wrinkle in Time. Lee has been a major part of Disney's modern movie winning streak, so it makes sense that they brought her on board for this project. She's also worked on Zootopia and Wreck-It Ralph as well, so we know she's got the magic touch. But one of the most important pieces of this puzzle, she is a long-time fan of the novel. She has mentioned that she read A Wrinkle in Time when she was 11 years old. She said that she would often imagine what it would be like to break free from the limitations of time, and now she got to help create that magical story. Awesome work, Jennifer. It took decades to get to the big screen. We know films of this caliber can tend to take a long time to make, especially with the kind of effects that we see in this film. But what if we told you the beautiful imagery and CGI effects weren't the cause of the lengthy process? The film has actually been in talks for a couple of decades. According to producer Catherine Hand, the process started in 1966, when she was a kid, and she knew she wanted to make a movie of her favorite book, Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time. Catherine felt a connection to the protagonist of the story, Meg. She lived in a big white house, had a crush on a gangly red-haired boy, and her father was often away just like Meg's. She wrote a letter to Walt Disney, urging him to make the film, but he died in 1966, so she promised herself that she would get the job done. She worked with producer Norman Lear and worked on securing the rights from L'Engle. In 2003, Disney made the book into a TV movie that was underwhelming. So Hand kept trying for the next decade until she finally got traction with Disney executive Tendo Nagenda. They got Jennifer Lee and Ava DuVernay involved, and it finally happened in 2018.
Call me Mrs. Whatsit.
L'Engle hated the original film. Sometimes when you work so hard and spend so much time working on and creating something, whether it be an art piece or a story, you tend to be a bit protective of it. It is, after all, your baby. So when someone else steps in and wants to take creative control or, say, maybe adapt your novel into a film, chances are you'll be very protective. Someone from Disney approached L'Engle a while back, and producer Catherine Hand said that the experience was similar to that of the film Saving Mr. Banks. They eventually succeeded because they were able to make the film. But we aren't just talking about the 2018 movie, which unfortunately L'Engle didn't get to see, as she passed away in 2007 at 88 years old. It turns out Disney already had made a version of A Wrinkle in Time, which L'Engle did get to see. It was originally going to be a miniseries, but in 2004, ABC aired a 128-minute movie adaptation. In an interview with Newsweek, she was asked if she had seen it and if it had met her expectations, to which she responded that she had glimpsed it and that it did meet her expectations because she expected it to be bad. And it was. We just wonder if she would have liked the new version.
Can you help us find him?
Diverse casting was key. When it comes to Hollywood and the film industry, it seems as they do not have the best track record for representing diversity. For a long time, Hollywood actors have all looked the same. But why? When you have people from all over the world watching Hollywood films, you should showcase people who are as diverse as the audience, don't you think? It's definitely time for a change. One of the coolest parts of Ava DuVernay's A Wrinkle in Time is the diverse cast. She has mentioned that she wanted a cast that reflects the real world. She said that what the film has done isn't anything new or outlandish. The question is, why have there been so many casts without reflections and inclusiveness that we see in our daily lives? Actress Storm Reed, who plays the titular character Meg, agrees with DuVernay. Reed hopes that this film is the new kind of normal for casting, and that she hopes this inspires people of all shapes, sizes, and color to know that they can do anything and nothing is impossible. What an awesome message, don't you think? We loved the casting in this film.
Well, then you're all set.
My gift is my command.
Oprah's inspo. Watching this film, there's no denying that Oprah is a force to be reckoned with on screen. Well, she is pretty epic in real life as well. However, her on-screen larger-than-life character steals the spotlight most of the scenes she's in. She's quite literally larger than life. When she first appears, she is a massive hologram-like presence in Meg's yard. They wanted a powerful character, so it makes sense that Oprah was cast for the role. But if you were among the many that were a bit confused as to what the Mrs. characters are, you're not alone. According to the amazing Oprah Winfrey, her inspiration for her character Mrs. Witch is a combination of Maya Angelou and Glinda the Good Witch. She said that she heard both of them in her head as she spoke lines for Mrs. Witch. Winfrey has also said that Mrs. Witch is a supernova. She plays one of the stars. Literally. Mrs. Witch is a spirit, supernova, angel woman, and teacher of wisdom. She's there to help Meg and Charles Wallace find their dad, but also to find their confidence. What did you think of Oprah in this role?
Be a warrior.
DuVernay makes history. Part of the charm in A Wrinkle in Time is its visionary director, Ava DuVernay. This talented filmmaker started out making low-budget indies like award-winning Sundance film Middle of Nowhere. She also directed Selma, a drama about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. DuVernay has recently made history as the first African-American woman ever to direct a film with a budget over $100 million. In fact, she is one of the very few women who have ever done so. Kathryn Bigelow had that budget for K-19, Widowmaker, Patty Jenkins had Wonder Woman, Jennifer Yu Nelson had Kung Fu Panda 2, and now DuVernay has A Wrinkle in Time. She is among one of the many things that makes this film so special. Her dedication to inclusiveness is awesome. DuVernay has mentioned to Time magazine that as a woman director, getting a call like this doesn't happen too often. But believe it or not, she didn't say yes right away. Disney executive Tendo Nagenda put the script in DuVernay's hands and told her to imagine the worlds that she could create. She would get to decide what everything looked like. Thankfully, she took the job and created a spectacular movie that is not just beautiful, but has a wonderful, empowering message.
Darling, time for dinner.
Red's costume. When you have a director who is determined to create a visual story that showcases the beauty of science, magic, diversity, and strength, the result is bound to be magical. So when you have as wonderful a vision as DuVernay had, it makes sense to hire a talented and two-time Oscar-nominated costume designer, Paco Delgado. It's obvious from just looking at this film that it is not traditional Disney. There's been a lot of creative freedom allotted, and it really shows in the beauty of the costumes. In the film, there is one setting in which the kids are on what appears to be a very crowded and colorful beach day. Michael Peña's character Red approaches them and is overly enthusiastic, like a happy tourist on the beach, almost to the point where it's creepy. His end goal was to take Charles Wallace, which he does. When designing Red's costume, Delgado has said that he had thought about two things: Pee Wee Herman and, of course, Pinocchio, and then went on to also be inspired by the legendary 80s singer Klaus Nomi. We totally see the inspirations working together for the character Red. Equal parts spooky and beautiful, don't you think?
So you fall to space.
More likely wrinkle it.
Banned novel. While watching this epic film, you might have found yourself a bit confused. Don't worry, you were not the only one. In fact, Liangle's novel almost never saw the light of day. Shocking, we know, especially since it translates so well to film. This story was unlike Liangle's other works. This manuscript confused some publishers who couldn't figure out what the target audience was. Kids or adults. Some themes were considered too complicated and they thought kids wouldn't understand it. and so it was rejected for being too complex. After being rejected 26 times, Farrar, Straus, and Giroux took a chance on her, so it's been banned on and off for years. A sci-fi story with a young girl as a protagonist was almost unheard of, and a story in which themes of science and religion could coexist was a bit too much for some people, all the while also being a beloved bestseller, selling over 10 million copies worldwide. For a long time, science fiction was considered childish and irrelevant, but now it is a mainstream part of Hollywood. It's amazing to think that so many decades ago this film seemed impossible, but now we have an amazing rescue story involving a young girl as the hero, which is the first part of the Time Quintet series.
He's one of the greatest minds in recent history. He's prodigious.
Storm Reed's very own Meg. The star of the show is definitely the talented Storm Reed. She was the first cast member to sign on for the film as the iconic literary character Meg Murray. Like most artists, young Reed was a bit unsure if she was going to get the role after her first audition. She actually was mentally prepared for the answer to be no when she finally got that callback, but the nerve-wracking feeling never stopped for her. Luckily, her talent and drive persevered and they loved her, and she too was a fan of the book. She first read it in 6th grade when she had to do a book report and test on it. So for her audition, she decided to focus on Meg in the first book. She didn't want to watch the previous A Wrinkle in Time movie to affect her portrayal. She wanted to make herself Meg and not use someone else's reference. She wanted to add her own quirks. The most important thing Reed learned about playing Meg was to love yourself and embrace your own faults. Meg taught her that she could do just about anything, and she also inspired tons of girls out there as well. And there you have it, folks. What did you think of A Wrinkle in Time? Did you love it? Is there anything that you might have seen that we missed? Be sure to let us know. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, be sure to check out our awesome playlist. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to Screen Rant to keep up to date with all the latest videos.